Alright, welcome to High Style Sundays. We got my man from the Canvas Cartel out here. My man Don is out here. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, bro.
First of all, for everybody who doesn't really know everything you're about, what you do, let them know.
So it all starts with Rip Canvas. 2011, my cousin Dominic, he came to me with the idea. He was a barber for like 20 years, and he came at me. I was doing t-shirts, and he was like, ain't you tired of working for everybody else? Let's build our own thing. I got tattooing going. We could open up our own little tattoo shop, retail experience with the art gallery, throwing events and stuff. And that's how Rip Canvas was born. And we was in South Pulaski and Wilkins. Our famous building is the one, if you know, over there by Christian Street. And the west side, there's the building with all the graffiti, and all the artists had a great time coming out and bombing it out really dope. And that was kind of what we was built on: the street culture, the streetwear, the lifestyle, skateboarding, tattooing, hip hop. It just was a mesh of all the cultures. And that's how Rip Canvas, and we called it Rip Canvas the Artist Social Club instead of Rip Canvas the Tattoo Shop. That's how it kind of grew from the beginning, and we still keep a lot of those same principles. Even if you look outside the shop, we still got the old sign that says Rip Canvas Artist Social Club. And in Canvas Cartel, as you can see, I'm wearing the famous chicken box, 4 wings and fries. One of the famous designers from our collective and founder, Dominic Carter, Prezzo Carter, if you want to follow him on the Instagram, one of the dopest tattoo artists in the city when it comes to black and gray and realism, doing portraits. He designed this with one of his illustrations, and it's just like one of the perfect designs for the summertime. A lot of people always stop me and say stuff about it. So our brand, the Canvas Cartel, is more of a community of artists than just a streetwear brand, So other artists, whether it be the tattoo artists, whether it be chefs that we deal with, and different, creatives, even just like you know what I mean? Like, you part of the cartel because you are creative and you creating content.
Okay, that's dope. So I want to take it back a little bit. Were you born and raised in Baltimore?
I am actually a Jersey boy, representing, no doubt. I came to Baltimore like 2008 full time. I've been coming to Baltimore all my life though. My family, my grandpa, his brother, James Carter and Bill Carter. Bill Carter was the Maryland kid. James Carter was the Jersey boy. He had his 13 kids, and then Bill had his boys out here in Maryland and raised them up. So Dominic is a descendant of Bill Carter. That's his great-great-grandpa. And me and him are cousins from that. Jim Carter and Bill Carter. They got a great story too. 2 brothers that was born in Virginia. I want to say their mom was a slave damn near. It goes that deep, you know what I mean? And they was raised separate in orphanages. They got back together somehow, and my grandpa, Jim Carter, is the first president of the NAACP in New Jersey. And Bill Carter out here in Maryland, he used to have his catering company doing catering for the governor and special events throughout the state. So, we had a great legacy to live up to. And that's a very important part of the whole story of Canvas Cartel and Rip Canvas, is because me and Dominic, we are blood cousins, blood relatives, but we come from this lineage of entrepreneurs.
And do you feel like that's all, or not do you feel like, but is that always what you wanted to do?
Well, me personally, I was always an artist. I want to be, when I was a teenager, I wanted to draw comic book characters, and then later in my late teens, I wanted to make a clothing line, and And1 was hot right then. And I was doing designs, and different t-shirt guys would be like, yo, hook me up with a t-shirt that says Ganja Land. This guy made a t-shirt. It was his concept. He wanted it to look like Timberland, but it was Ganja Land instead of Timberland, and obviously it was the weed hemp sign. And I remember he used my design. He paid me a little bit. I was maybe 19, 20, and I made the design, and he was like, yeah, they ain't really sell. But then I went to Dover, Delaware, where Dell State is, and there's a mall across the street. And I went over across the street to the mall, and I seen one of my t-shirt designs in the mall. And I was like, yo, this nigga lied to me and said the shit wasn't selling. so he wouldn't have to pay me later, and he was still selling the shit. So that was like my introduction into like being a graphic designer and a streetwear. I was an aspiring streetwear designer back then. So that was where I was like, I didn't even go to college yet, you know, and I was just a little kid with raw talent. I'm a designer, I'm gonna make a clothing line, you know, and there's a lot of kids out there, and that's where we come in because we do custom t-shirts for different brands.
All right, so take us back a little bit about like your first design, like what really, you know, how did that impact you? Does it still stick with you till today?
Wow, it's interesting that you said like what was my first design, because like when I was young, I was like into all kind of creative stuff. I mean, I'm an old head now, so I grew up in the 80s when like, you know, Jordan brand was starting off, and I was really highly influenced by the Jordan brand. And I always, you know, I thought sneaker culture was like a big influence, but comic books and sneakers, that really was like the foundation for me. Like I was a big X-Men fan, like the whole X-Men movement. And then later on to find out that it was like patterned after the civil rights movement, and they used Martin Luther King and Malcolm X as like the roadmaps for Professor X and Magneto. So I was really nerdy when it came to that stuff. But you know, skateboards, you know, coming up in the 80s with Tony Hawk and all the Mike McGills and, you know, Lance Mountains, that was heavy for me. And, you know, obviously girls came into the picture and kind of shut a lot of that down, because it was like, you know, am I going to sit here and draw or ride skateboards, or am I trying to get along? So the girls, they really shifted it for me. But I'd say my first design was probably, because I was in art school, like art classes, advanced art classes in high school. I made like a sneaker out of clay one time. And I know it's still up in my mom's crib. And you know, I thought that, you know, that was my like introduction into designing sneakers, and it was cool. And, you know, I think about it now, and that was really kind of like my first design, you know, where it was like, I'm a brand, this is my design, you know. And it definitely took a lot of inspiration from Jordan and Huarache and all that. But, you know, that was like my first design. But I will say one of the most biggest, you know, comic book is me creating Gray Mask Man. That's like my, I don't want to say alter ego in a way, but like it almost has like some, you know, alter ego implications. And the Gray Mask Man, when I drew it when I was a teenager, was not the same way I interpreted it as an adult, because that was like my fine art, pop art introduction. And I remember Dominic, he was like, yo, you should put that on a t-shirt. And I was like, nah, man, that's for the art gallery. I don't want to, I'm going to make an art show, and I'm going to paint them and all these different versions. And then I realized that the t-shirt was the new art gallery in the streets. And then when I started making the Gray Mask Man and putting them on t-shirts, people started reacting to it. And a lot of people don't really know about it, but people react to it without even knowing me. And that's what the part about Gray Mask Man that I like. But I will say this, when I was drawing comic books in the early 90s and mid 90s, Gray Mask Man, he was more of just a name. He wasn't like a comic book character or anything. It just was like a crazy event happened when me and my homies was together, and I was like, Gray Mask Man. And then everybody laughed, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, you know? But it never really was a comic book. Some people think that it was like, oh, the comic book you drew when you was a kid. No. It just was like a concept then.
My bad. But do you feel like that's the biggest, like that Gray Mask Man had the biggest impact on your career?
You know, there's a lot of validity to that from the perspective of, it's one thing I never let go of. And it's something I always believed that I could carry on, you know? We had an art show this year, and we combined the sneaker culture and the fine art world. So we made an art show called Certified Heat. And I had 2 art pieces in there, and both of them were kind of sneaker related, but the Gray Mask Man piece was so important for me to put that in an art show and have it hanging up, the painting, you know? And then I matched it up with a cool sneaker, the P-Rod Dunk, what the P-Rod, and it really felt like the sneaker and the painting went together. And it was just like, wow, to see that in, you know, in real life, it was like, yo, this is actually something that I know I could actually pull off, you know? So, but it was really about the fine art, you know? I felt Gray Mask Man is more of a concept than just an image, you know?
Now, do you feel like which one do you feel like you have more passion for? I want to say probably both, but is it like creating the sneakers, or do you now have more passion for, you know, printing the shirts?
Well, I will say this, right? You know, I love the sneaker culture, you know what I mean? I got my Travises on now. I think I'm fly. I want to have the hottest shit. And it's not about I want to have the hottest shit. I want to have the hottest shit that makes me stand out. Because I'm not one of those dudes that just wants to wear everything everybody thinks is hot. You know what I mean? But I'm going to take one of those little pieces that you think is hot, and I'm going to swing it with something else to make it my own. So I'll be looking more like the individual than just the dude wearing a pair of Travis Scott Jordan 1s. You know what I mean? I'm going to mix it up with our brand. I'm going to design stuff that kind of fits. And that part right there makes it more unique, you know?
Do you think that's like something that more artists need to be more like, well, I'm gonna say like self-aware of, that they need to be themselves and unique? You know, coming from, you work with a lot of artists,
right,
right, that needs to be put in the culture a little more.
Well, for me, one thing I never, like, I work with a lot of artists, you know what I mean? And my thing is like, look, I want to help you become a brand. It's not about, oh, design something for Canvas Cartel and then it's Canvas Cartel. It's no, Canvas Cartel with Vigo Delamigo, or Canvas Cartel. I even made Dominic put his name on this t-shirt, because it's not just about the artist, I mean about the brand, it's about the artist is the brand, you know? And for me to like promote other artists, it kind of is like goes back to the X-Men, you know what I mean? Professor X, he went and got Wolverine. You remember the scene in the movie when he went to the bar and he was like, hey man, I want to talk to you. And he was like, fuck off. Yeah. And then he had to come back 10 years later. You know what I mean? That's the same way I am with the art. You know what I mean? It's like, yo, become part of the cartel. We gonna help you become a brand in your own. And the fact that you under our umbrella is gonna create a legacy for the brand. You know, and I'm really about legacy. You mind if I know it's high style, but I didn't know if that had anything to do with it. I definitely brought a little bit of medicine with me. I'm still waiting on my medical card to come in, but in the meantime, in between time, I'm down with the high style too.
And I want to ask you, so can you explain, because I feel like there's a lot of people that create a lot of different things but don't understand branding. So can you like explain branding to us?
That's a very good question, because like for me, and I come from the corporate side too. When I graduated college, yes, I went to college at the little crusty ass white school that was 2% black, including the faculty. You know what I'm saying? But I was the one black kid in the art department, and all the professors was like, this kid, he's a little different. And I definitely made myself known. But one thing, when I got to New York, I worked at Family Circle magazine. You know, I thought I was gonna work for Source or Vibe. You know, I was looking for ESPN the magazine, you know. But I ended up working for Family Circle. But the publishing company that Family Circle is under is also responsible for 17 magazine, which is one of the most influential fashion magazines for women. Esquire magazine. Every man that thinks he's a swaggy dude knows Esquire. And then Popular Science, you know, I was a little nerdy, so I liked the idea of Popular Science. I remember seeing them all the time in the library, you know. But when I worked for them, it gave me that little bit of corporate sensibility, and that right there let me know that becoming a brand is more than just putting the logo out. You know, you got to have a mission, you know what I mean? And when we started Rip Canvas as an artist social club, we had memberships. And any young artist that wanted to become part of the artist social club, they would get 3 things. And that was me becoming like the brand coach. And what I told every business, whether you was a chef, whether you were a graphic designer, tattoo artist, I don't care. You need 3 things. You need a logo, which is your brand identity, right? Somebody can recognize you, a mark, right? You need a business plan. The business plan is probably the first thing you need. In that business plan, it's going to go over your mission and your vision, who you are as a brand. And from that perspective, you can become the brand. And one thing I noticed about customers and like people that follow brands, think of Michael Jordan, for example, right? We don't love Jordan brand just because of sneakers.
Right.
We love Jordan brand because that nigga was nice,
Right.
right? So from that, it tells me that people fall in love with personalities before they fall in love with the brand. So you almost gotta be the face of the brand. Now me, in Canvas Cartel, I will say one thing that's probably my biggest weakness is getting out there and speaking and saying, Canvas Cartel, come on out there. It's your boy Don Dooley, ding, ding. You know, I always do my thing. You know what I mean? But one thing about the personal side of the brand is, you know, it's not just me. And then from that